Hi Michael, this is a video for you. I may put this out on my blog as well. You've asked me the question about the three principles, which is what do I think of the three principles advocating the notion that techniques or processes are a hindrance. And really, and so far as I understand it, I'm not a three principles scholar by any means. So far as I understand it, it's the idea that you can just share a liberating perspective, share an understanding, and people will shift radically. And you don't need processes, and you don't need this kind of thing. The processes, in fact, are a hindrance. I think that's the thing. Now, I don't know if that's actually the three principles perspective, but let's assume for a moment that it is. And do I agree that processes, formal practices are a hindrance? No, and yes. No and yes and maybe. Maybe they are in some contexts and maybe they aren't in others. I know full well for myself, speaking for myself in my own development, I very rarely use formal processes. But that doesn't mean that when a new idea or a perspective is presented to me, I'm not running it through internalized processes that I've built that run on default. I have internalized mental processes, ways of taking on board ideas and information that mean I can put them to very good use. I often use the metaphor trying them on. I like to try on a new idea and live life through it for a bit. Now that kind of happens for me automatically outside of consciousness. That's just what I do with the idea or the perspective that's offered, and it serves me very well. Now while that's not a formal process, it is actually a process. It is indeed a process. And one of the things that I've observed over time, over my time as a trainer and as a coach and as a change work practitioner, I've observed that some people can take an idea or a perspective and apply it transformatively in their own life very rapidly and very easily, while other people seem to find it a lot more challenging. So what's the difference that makes the difference? Well, so far as I'm concerned, the difference that makes the difference is on how they are processing that. So if you're working with somebody who has a high or a higher, let's keep it relative, higher degree of ability to process things within themselves effectively, you don't need to present process to them. There's no need for that. They've got all the process they need inside of them. Other people can do with some coaching around process. They can do with having their hand held through a few processes. Not so much because that process is going to transform them in and of itself, but the skills they develop, the ability to start running things outside of consciousness for themselves that they develop through that can be very useful. So a great example of this might be meditation. If somebody's very habituated into non-meditative ways of being, a formal meditation practice can be a really useful tool in helping to develop a certain capacity to pay attention in certain ways, and also probably there's some shifting of brainwave states and this kind of thing that goes on. Some people can really benefit from a formal practice there. Other people, they're not really going to need that. You know, it's not going to be necessary for them. And if they don't need it, then the process is a hindrance, because you're likely to be imposing upon them a process which actually is less effective than the process they may have themselves. So I think really there's a degree of knowing who you're working with, if we're talking about a change work context here, who you're working with, who is this person, what kind of qualities are they bringing to the table? Are you going to need to help them out? You're going to need to hold their hand through developing some process skills, which hopefully they will then be going on and utilizing for themselves. Or have they actually got an awful lot of what they need? One last thing I want to say about this is again from my own perspective. Before I got into NLP, I'd spent 3 years at university doing philosophy. Now, specifically analytic philosophy, and that developed a whole skill set inside of me for working with my kind of head brain, so to speak, analytically with material. That's a very useful thing. It's quite an unbalanced way of doing things, but the skills were very useful. When I left university, I took up practicing Qigong and Tai Chi and Nei Gong. So, you know, Nei Gong is an internal meditation practice where you're focusing and really tuning into subtle differences within your body field, within your body structure, this kind of thing. I did this for years, daily Nei Gong practice, before I got to NLP. and that kind of thing. Now, I don't know for a fact, but I certainly believe that it's a good likelihood that the skills I picked up both from studying philosophy and studying Nei Gong and practicing Nei Gong served me greatly in being able to make use of some of the fundamental ideas from NLP, which I took on board very quickly, and they were transformative to me. And I've met plenty of people who have been exposed to the same ideas and told me they've not really made any difference to them. So I put it down to that, there being a development of skill. Later on, when I did clean language training, I was facilitated on the receiving end of a lot of clean language facilitation. I believe that really sharpened up my internal modeling skills. So it gave me something generatively that I could take away. So if I come to something like 3 principles now, the ideas can be shared with me and I can go boom, and I've got a lot more there built in, but it was trained in through doing formal practices in the past. The formal practices have led to me having certain cognitive skills, so to speak, consciousness skills, so to speak, that enable me to use those ideas. So, do practices and processes hinder? No, I don't think they do. I think in the right place, they are very generative in helping people to develop skills. In the wrong place, yes, they can indeed hinder. Hope that's been helpful for you, and I think I probably will post this up on the YouTube channel.